Welcome back to the news at 10. Latest figures from the National Bureau of Statistics show Nigeria's unemployment rate increased by over 8 million in the last quarter of 2015. For the period under review, unemployment rate went up to 8.03 million from 7.5 million in the third quarter of 2015. The NBS report also showed that the number of underemployed Nigerians went up from 13.2 million in the third quarter of 2015 to 14.4 in the fourth quarter. The number of Nigerians with full-time employment, however, dropped from 55.2 million to 0.5 million in the last quarter of 2015. Lots of figures there for you. So joining me on the news at 10 now is a data and information analyst, Mr. Babatunde Ogunsonwo, and we're going to make sense of the figures that we see. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10.
Thank you, Gemma.
Lots of figures there running up and down. Is this a true reflection of where our unemployment status or where we are right now?
Yes, it is. It's information that has been released by the National Bureau of Statistics. Some weeks ago, we saw the inflation rate. Inflation and unemployment rate are regarded as the evil twins. Unemployment is regarded as being more powerful because it injects the virus of crime into citizens. And just like HIV, unemployment, if not managed, can lead to the death of the economy. What we have right now is in the last 4 quarters, the National Bureau of Statistics has made it official. In the last 4 quarters, unemployment rate has been rising. In Q1 2015, it was 24.2%. And then in Q2, it moved to 26.5%. Then it still nudged up higher in Q3 to 27.3%. Right now, the unemployment rate is 29.2%, and that's quite significant.
Okay, you're telling us it's rising, but why is it rising is the issue in the quarter that we're reviewing.
There are lots of reasons. If we look at it from the state government perspective, what state governments have done, especially at the various geopolitical zones, is there's a contraction in their 2016 budgets compared to 2015. And once corporates notice that governments are contracting, they also find it hard to increase inventory, to increase stocks, and to increase jobs. Let's look at a review of the 6 geopolitical zones. The Northeast, 2016 budget of the Northeastern region as compared to 2015, we see a dramatic reduction in the budget of the Northeast by 24.7 billion naira. Then in the North Central as well, we see a reduction in their 2016 budget compared to 2015 budget by 103 billion naira. Same thing in the Southeast, a reduction by 123 billion naira. Same thing in the South-South, a reduction by 180 billion naira. So in the summary, 4 geopolitical regions have said they are going to be contracting, they're going to be declaring reduced budgetary allocations compared to 2015. But what is probably more remarkable is if you look at the total number of fully employed Nigerians in the last 90 days, we see a significant decline. 710,000 Nigerians are no longer fully employed. And that's the number of people that have retired or resigned, number of people that have been demoted to part-time jobs, or the number of people that have been outrightly fired. 710,000 people.
In terms of what to do, now looking at those figures on the screen right now, the Federal Executive Council is on a retreat. They're trying to map out strategies of how to do something about the economy. And we have those kind of figures that we can see on the screen. They're mind-boggling figures. What should be the first thing you would advise them if you were at that table with them to do about unemployment, beyond just saying we need to do something about it? What should we do?
In the short term, sectors that have known to employ a lot of people, the textile sector is down. Looking at results from National Bureau of Statistics, so there has to be a lot of incentives into reviving the textile sector. Same thing, the food and beverage sector, year on year is down by 5% as measured by GDP. So they also have to look at ways of reviving the food and beverage sector. But perhaps more importantly, what we will notice is 87% of individuals that have full-time jobs in the country at best have secondary school certificates. So what I would recommend to the government is quite simple. For individuals that are employed full-time that have only secondary school certificates, we need to increase the penalties of those individuals. So what I'm saying is, if you have a full-time job and all you have is a secondary school certificate, then your personal income tax should increase. This is to give incentives to people to go to school. But because what we are seeing right now by the unemployment figures is a large percentage of even those that are fully employed, 87% of those that are fully employed at best have secondary school leaving certificates.
All right, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Data and information analyst, Mr. Babatunde Ogunsowo. I don't know why I wanted to say Babajide, but Babatunde.
It's Babajide, actually.
Thank you so much for joining us. Babajide it is.
It is Babajide.
On the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And we're going to move on from there to business news. Here's Adeshawa Josh.
You first. First Bank.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Business News. I am Adeshawa Josh. Captains of industries are gathered in Abidjan, the capital city of Côte d'Ivoire, for the 2016 Africa CEO Forum. The leaders who came from across the continent have been discussing industrialization in Africa, placing emphasis on the need to realize regional integration for a thriving African economy. Channel's business correspondent Tempula Shaji reports from Abidjan.
Leaders and chief executives of African companies gracing the 2016 CEOs Forum. Gathering here in Abidjan, their intention is to brainstorm on something different for the growth of African economy, which has largely been depressed by the crash of commodities prices with negative impact on currencies. The plenary begins with the President of Côte d'Ivoire, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, who is glad to receive delegates attending the forum despite the recent terror attack in the country. Addressing some of the socio-economic challenges in the continent, President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, presents a 5-point agenda as a response to the lapses.
The African Development Bank has now raised the bar on its level of ambition for Africa. We call them high fives for Africa. Light up and power Africa. Feed Africa. Industrialize Africa. Integrate Africa. And improve the quality of life for Africans.
This panel comprises government leaders and top executives. The discussants dwell more on regional integration and the industrialization of Africa.
98 to 99% of the milk we use in Nigeria is imported. How can you keep importing all these things? I mean, wheat, we import wheat, 100%. So in Africa, what we need to do is actually to even try and, first of all, be self-sufficient and go for massive industrialization.
The future is in us unlocking the market that exists in Africa. And for those of us who are policymakers, we must invest in developing the products.
We really do need to work collectively, not to isolate ourselves from the rest of the world, to participate in the global economy, but as well as that, and I fully agree with everything the panel said, drive regional and continental trade.
The Africa CEO Forum is a 2-day event attracting several investors amidst heavy security against terror attacks. As various panels unfold, expectations are high. CEOs are generally tired about the much talk about the development of the African economy. What they want to see more is more of action. Top executives attending the 2016 Africa CEO Forum have an expectation, and that expectation is to go away with result-oriented discussions. From the venue of the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan, Tempula Shaju, Channels Television News.
And back here in Nigeria, 1 million young people may soon become employers of labor. That is, if the initiative proposed to the Bank of Industry today is implemented. The chairman of After School Graduate Development Center, AGDC, Mrs. Ibukwa Woshika, had approached the Bank of Industry seeking a partnership aimed at scaling up financial inclusion of Nigeria's youths. Mrs. Awoshika, who doubles as the chairman of First Bank PLC, says that the initiative hopes to raise 1 million young entrepreneurs who will provide jobs as well as create value.
We want to drive a project which we know will take us a few years, probably 2 to 3 years to 4 years. But we want to call it a 1 million new entrepreneurs project. We want to say, let's start a project where our goal is to find 1 million new entrepreneurs within Nigeria, with job as the focus.
Entrepreneur plus 2 will give us 3 million jobs in the first year, if we can push that far. And there are more than enough people that if we deploy a lot of resource, and resource in this case is not just money. Money is when they have qualified. But as you process, as you prepare, as you educate, as you push them, and as you help them to sort of condition and identify the many value chains where there are gaps, where they can fit into, because a lot of the value that is on the table right now is in the value chain of different sectors.
We're looking forward to collaborating with everybody that can help this country. So when I told my colleagues over the weekend that I'll be coming, they were all excited that we could collaborate with you, work with First Bank, work with AGDC and other reputable development partners in this country, so we can actually hit the right numbers. So if we are going to tackle the problems of unemployment in this country, we need to reduce this to single digits, which means that we need to create like 10 to 15 million new jobs yesterday, not even today.
Improved market sentiments pushed the benchmark index of the Nigeria stock market higher as equities closed in the positive territory. Balaji Akinwale tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Transaction volume at the Nigeria equities market closed at 412.4 million units, valued at over 2 billion naira. Improved market sentiment saw the benchmark index edge up by 0.81%, closing at 25,902.95. The market's capitalization stood at 8.9 trillion naira. On the gainers table, UCAP rose by 9.41%. Fidelity Bank edged up by 6.67%, and Guaranty Trust Bank recorded 4.53% gain. On the decliners table, Mobil and NASCON dropped by 5% each, while PZ shared 4.99%. On the top trades chart, bank stocks took the lead, with Zenith Bank and Fidelity Bank attracting the highest units of shares at 50 million and 47.6 million units each. And that's it on the Stock Market Report. I am Bolaji Akinwale.
Thanks a lot, Balaji. Let's also check out closing figures from other markets around the world. That's business news tonight. The news at 10 continues in a moment. I am Adeshawa Josh.
You first. First Bank.
Nigeria will become competitive in the global arena if indigenous companies take charge of private sector investment on strategic infrastructure. The managing director of the Lagos Deep Offshore Logistics Base, LADOL, Dr. Amy Jadisimi, told oil industry players at the African Petroleum Congress that indigenous investment is an essential ingredient for developing capacity on the continent.
The fall in oil prices is a blessing in disguise, as Nigeria will look back to this period in history which created conditions necessary for African countries to move forward and develop capacity in a profitable and sustainable way for huge private sector participation. This was the premise upon which discussions by oil industry players unfolded over the need to commercialize oil and gas opportunities through real private sector medium to long-term investments on strategic infrastructure.
Indigenous people of Nigeria making medium to long-term investments, building strategic infrastructure. And strategic infrastructure can broadly be defined as infrastructure which, when it's created, leads to a multiplier effect. If you build the right facility, if you bring all the elements in, if you operate at international standards 24/7, you can make Nigeria competitive today.
Indigenous companies' investment, local content and local capacity development only happen through demand-driven development, which is fast, effective and of low cost. And this can also be a long-term development strategy.
We have enough funding locally. We can spend Naira, people. We can invest Naira and we can build our infrastructure using Naira. So we have the market size to justify the investment and we have the capital in country to make the investment.
In our facility, 85% of the people that actually work in that facility and that actually work on the project are Nigerians. Schooled here, groomed here, trained here. When you think about local content development as a strategic play for you and actually work it through, thinking about it as a long-term strategy and focused on it, you can actually make things happen here in Nigeria.
A highly diversified and industrialized Nigeria and an attractive investment location and hub. That's what Ladol hopes for the future. And with their multi-billion-dollar vessel integration and fabrication facility, creating jobs throughout Nigeria by increasing demand for made-in-Nigeria fabrication and engineering is their specialty. Omelogo, Nadi Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, coach Samson Siasia picks 6 home-based players for the double-header against the Pharaohs of Egypt as 14 foreign professionals arrive camp. And that's on sports. Please stay with us.